In this video, we're going to look at particle movement. So we've got the graph. It's actually above, not below. It shows the velocity of velocity v of t of a particle moving along the x-axis and can be defined by a continuous linear piecewise defined function over the interval from 0 to 10. Note that the derivative of velocity equals 0 on the interval from 2 to 4. So our first question is, on which time intervals does the particle move to the left? And we are supposed to justify our answer. Our hint is that we are supposed to move list the smaller interval first. So we know that the left means that it is going to be negative. And in this case, negative means we're going to be looking at the velocity being below the x-axis. So because we do have a picture of the velocity, so anytime that it is below the x-axis, we know that the particle is moving to the left. So it looks like that first interval. So particle moves to the left on the intervals from 0 to 1. And you always use an open parentheses, and from 7 to 10, because the velocity is less than 0, or you can write the words the velocity is negative. The auto grade and the review only does this piece right here. The next thing is asking us is which time intervals is the particle speeding up. So we know speeding up is when the velocity and the acceleration have the same sign. So that means I need to know where the velocity is either above the x-axis at the same time it has a positive slope, or where it is up below the x-axis with a negative slope. So those are the two things that I'm looking for speeding up, because the slope is representing the acceleration. So first of all, I'm looking for above the x-axis. So above the x-axis is these. And then I'm looking for a positive slope. So the only positive slope is here. So my first interval is between 1 and 2. So we're speeding up on 1 and 2 because the velocity is greater than 0 or positive, and the velocity is less, or sorry, not the velocity, the acceleration is greater than 0 or also positive. Now we're going to look for below the x-axis and negative. So let me erase this. So below the x-axis is here and here. And I'm looking for a negative slope. So it looks like the only negative slope is right here. So it would be between 7 and 8. So on the interval from 7 to 8, because the velocity is less than 0 and the acceleration is less than 0. Now it wants to know when which time the particle speed is decreasing. This is another way for saying slowing down. So again, slowing down is when the velocity and acceleration have different signs, which means we are above the x-axis with negative slope, or we are below the x-axis with positive slope. Okay, so let's look at that scenario. So let's look above the x-axis, and negative slope is right here. So I'm going to say from 4 to 7. So on the interval from 4 to 7, because the velocity was positive, it was above the x-axis, but the acceleration is negative because it's got a negative slope. All right, let's see if we can, now we're going to do below the x-axis and a positive slope. So it looks like I may have needed more blanks. Below the x-axis and a positive slope looks like I have an interval here and an interval here. So it looks like there's two places. So we're going to go from 0 to 1 and from 8 to 10. from 0 to 1 and 8 to 10 because our velocity is less than 0, it's negative, and our acceleration is greater than 0, it's positive.